Xian has set the Academy token on fire. The area erupted in a frenzy almost instantly. Teams stared in disbelief at the Academy tokens in their hands. Their eyes locked on the first one that had burst into flames, their expressions filled with astonishment. According to the rules, if more than half of the teams in the top 16 choose to burn their Academy tokens, the elimination round of the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition will end immediately. At that point, the top 8 teams will advance to the final battle. However, this burning of Academy tokens is usually only done by teams that are absolutely confident in their rankings. After all, if you burn your token alone without any cooperation from other teams, your score becomes fixed, making it easy for others to surpass you. With one wrong move, you could even fall out of the top 8. Therefore, teams usually only burn their Academy tokens when they are absolutely sure of their position. But now, Xian had done just that. Did he already believe that no one could challenge his spot? Many teams exchanged glances. While Xian's sudden surge of 50,000 points was baffling, it didn't seem like a guaranteed victory. What is Xian doing? Shen Songxing and the others also witnessed this and immediately asked with serious expressions. Mu Chun narrowed his eyes slightly and replied, "There may be more to come." Luo Li and Wen Qingxian exchanged looks. Their gazes fixed on the Academy token, and sure enough, after about 10 minutes, the teams ranked 6th, Blood Tianhe's group, as well as Lu Qingyun's and Fang Yun's teams, started to glow red, as if flames were burning within them. The area trembled once again. Even Blood Tianhe, Lu Qingyun, and Fang Yun are burning their Academy tokens. That makes 4 Academy tokens burned already. Once 4 more from the top 16 burn, the final battle will begin. Xian really played it well. He must have been waiting for this moment. Hearing the loud exclamations all around, Shen Songxing and the others' faces darkened. They had finally claimed first place, but now, it was already being taken from them once again. What frustrated them even more was that they had no idea how Xian had gained those 50,000 points. Now, the only teams capable of pushing Xian's score up by 50,000 are the top 8. But not only did the top 8 teams not have any significant point fluctuations, even the top 16 teams hadn't been affected. It was clear that the 50,000 points didn't come from them. Luo Li and Wen Qingxuan's expressions turned cold. Mu Chun slowly rubbed the Academy token, his dark eyes gleaming with an unreadable light, leaving everyone wondering what he was thinking. 2 more Academy tokens are burning. Suddenly, another round of shocked cries filled the air. Among the top 16 teams, 2 more Academy tokens began to burn. These 2 teams were ranked 16th and 14th. Typically, these teams would never burn their tokens, as doing so would eliminate their chance of entering the final battle. But now, this scene had unfolded. Any onlooker could tell that this was all part of Xian's plan. There was no way so many teams would simultaneously burn their tokens without some hidden manipulation. The area quieted down in the aftermath of the shock, with teams quietly glancing at Mu Chun, their eyes showing a bit of sympathy. It was obvious to everyone that at this critical moment, Xian had outmaneuvered Mu Chun once again. Now, if 2 more Academy tokens were burned, the final battle would begin. Mu Chun and his team would need to gain another 50,000 points during this uncertain period, which could only happen if they defeated a team in the top 8. But now, because of the burning of Academy tokens, the points of Xian, Blood Tianhe, Lu Qingyun, and Fang Yun were locked, making them untouchable. The only remaining targets for Mu Chun were Wen Qingxian, Wu Ling, and Wen Buxing's teams. But everyone knew that Mu Chun had a good relationship with these teams, and if he went after them, his reputation would be ruined. Xian's move was truly ruthless. This bastard! Shen Songxing gritted his teeth, his voice filled with fury. Clearly, he had also recognized Xian's deviousness. What should we do now? Li Xuantong's expression was also dark as he looked at Mu Chun and Luo Li. Luo Li slowly tightened her jade-like hand, but she didn't speak. Instead, she glanced at Mu Chun, her eyes showing some concern. However, Mu Chun seemed not to have heard them. His gaze was fixed on the Academy token. When Xuan's slender fingers curled a lock of her hair that had fallen by her ear, she quietly glanced at Mu Chun, then extended her hand. In her palm, There was an academy token glowing with light. Take the points from our team. When Xun'er said, even if we lose half of them, we'll still maintain a spot in the top 8. These points aren't a big deal. The real champion will be decided in the final tournament. Xun'er and the others were stunned, clearly not expecting Wen Xun'er to be willing to share half of their points with them. They exchanged glances. This was too much of a gift for them to accept. Luoli also bit her red lips with her pearly teeth, her beautiful eyes looking at Chen. The latter, clearly surprised, looked up, his gaze bewildered as he stared at Wen Xun'er. Hey, shouldn't it be a bit wrong to hesitate at this point? Wen Xun'er frowned slightly, staring at Chen. Maybe you think these points aren't earned in a fair way, but if you can make me willingly hand them over, doesn't that show you have some skill? At least in this Spiritual Academy Grand Competition, I don't think anyone else could do this. So if you refuse these points now, claiming some sort of dignity, I'll think you're being immature, and I don't like having such a picky friend. Upon hearing this, Chen couldn't help but rub his nose, letting out a bitter laugh. Yet, there was a hint of gratitude in his eyes. No one around them spoke, simply watching Chen, waiting for his decision. As long as he agreed, he could surpass Xuan once again and reclaim the top spot on the points leaderboard. Moreover, he could slap Xuan hard with this move. However, under the many gazes, a smile slowly appeared on the handsome face of the young man, and he gently shook his head. When Xun'er, in frustration, couldn't help but stomp her jade foot, glaring angrily at Chen. Sorry, I won't accept your points, Chen said softly. It's not about pride. It's just that I haven't reached that point yet. When Xun'er crossed her arms and turned her head slightly, her face cold. What else can you do now? Are you going to raid all the strong teams left? And if Chen dared to entertain that thought, those teams in the top 16 would likely burn their academy tokens in retaliation. Seeing her reaction, Chen could only smile helplessly. I think I know how Xuan got those points. Luoli and the others immediately turned their eyes toward him, even when Xun'er glanced over. Because they used temptation and threats to trap a batch of score reserves? Chen said indifferently. These score reserves can provide Xuan with a large amount of points at the last moment. However, Xuan has been hiding it very well, never exposing them. The so-called score reserves were like raising pigs and sheep, waiting to slaughter them once they had fattened up. The difference here was that they weren't slaughtering for meat, but for points. Score reserves? Luoli and the others' expressions shifted slightly. They hadn't expected Xuan to use such underhanded methods. Normally, it's difficult to trap score reserves in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition because a small number wouldn't have much impact. However, if they were in large numbers, it could easily backfire. Once hundreds of teams rebel simultaneously, it would be impossible to handle, and if there were significant casualties, the teams might even be disqualified from the competition. How do you know this? When Xun'er asked in confusion. If Xuan really used this method, it should be hidden very deeply and never exposed. Because I know Xuan too well, Chen said with a slight smile. He's always someone who keeps a trump card, so I had people investigating in secret. Fortunately, there were some results. But even if you know he's using this tactic now, Xun'er said helplessly. The situation was such that reversing it was extremely difficult. You've already prepared, right? When Xuan's beautiful eyes were also fixed on Chen, her rosy lips slightly parted, and there was a hint of astonishment in her eyes. Could it be that this guy had predicted this situation already? Kind of, Chen replied with a smile, his confidence exuding in a way that could stir anyone's heart. He then flicked his finger, and a surge of spiritual power shot up into the sky, transforming into a massive burst of spiritual light. Everyone in the area was surprised and stared at him. The atmosphere remained quiet, but after about 10 minutes, it was suddenly broken. Everyone looked up, only to see a large number of light and shadow streaks rushing towards them from the horizon. Swish, swish. The multitude of lights and shadows finally halted in the sky, revealing over 100 teams gathered together. Some sharp-eyed individuals seemed to sense something, and shock immediately flooded their minds. They looked at Chen with wide eyes in disbelief. Among these teams, a figure stepped forward slowly, his face vaguely familiar. It was none other than Lin Zhou, the captain of the team from the desolate Spirit Academy that Chen had once saved. Hee, brother Mu. All of the teams here were once saved by you. Today, we are at your service, Lin Zhou said with a fist salute, his hearty laugh echoing through the sky, drawing countless astonished gazes. Who would have thought that while Ji Xian had kept a hand hidden, Chen was also prepared for a comeback? Over 100 teams stood in midair, their grandeur making everyone in the area glance over, unable to hide their astonishment and confusion. Xin Songxing, Li Xiantong, and even Luo Li and Wen Qingxian looked in shock at the sudden appearance of Lin Zhou and the others. Clearly, this unexpected development had caught them off guard. What's going on? Wen Qingxian asked Chen, unable to contain her curiosity. Ji Xian has his methods, and naturally, I have my preparations, Chen smiled slightly. He looked at Lin Zhou and the others and said, and they are my final preparation. You set up a division? Xin Songxing asked, surprised. These teams owed me a favor at one point. After that, I contacted Lin Zhou and asked him to help me reach out to these teams. I hoped that if something went wrong, they could step in and assist me, Chen explained softly. Of course, if Ji Xian hadn't used those underhanded methods, they wouldn't have appeared. Xin Songxing and the others exchanged glances, then couldn't help but click their tongues. Their eyes were filled with strange expressions as they looked at Chen. Clearly, Chen's perfect preparations had left them somewhat stunned. Don't look at me like that. I've fought Ji Xian many times, so I know his methods. He once tricked me on the Spirit Road, though I did it willingly. But there's no reason for him to trick me a second time, Chen smiled. Even though you have some favors with these people, getting them to hand over their points to you shouldn't be so simple, right? Luo Li said with a clear gaze, glancing at Chen. Although only 8 teams would make it to the final battle, and the rest would be eliminated, it didn't mean that the points of the other teams were entirely useless. After all, if their points were too low, the spiritual academies with low points would be excluded from the next spiritual academy competition. Chen nodded. Exactly. That's why I promised each team 5 drops of supreme spiritual liquid. Only then did Luo Li, Wen Qingxian, and the others realize the significance, and they shot Chen an unamused look. It seemed the most important part of the deal was this condition. After all, supreme spiritual liquid was by no means an ordinary item for people at their current stage. When the supreme spiritual liquid and points were combined, along with some favors, it wasn't too strange that these teams would willingly help Chen. Where did you get so much supreme spiritual liquid? Luo Li asked in confusion. The supreme spiritual liquid they had obtained from the Spirit Treasury Hall hadn't been this much. Could it be that you've unlocked the seal on the Spirit Gathering Bowl? She asked. Chen smiled and nodded. Because of my increase in strength, I tried a few methods. While I still haven't fully broken the seal on the Spirit Gathering Bowl, I've managed to tear open a small gap. So, I've gradually obtained over 800 drops of supreme spiritual liquid. Luo Li nodded lightly, understanding now. He's truly a wealthy man. Xin Songxing, Li Xiantong, and the others all clicked their tongues. Over 500 drops of supreme spiritual liquid. Such a quantity is unlikely to be easily produced by an ordinary person, and even supreme powerhouses would place great value on it. Let alone those of us who have yet to reach the supreme realm. I didn't want to either, Chen sighed lightly. Over 500 drops of supreme spiritual liquid is no small number. Even with the Spirit Gathering Bowl in his possession, he still felt a pang of regret. But at this moment, he had no other choice. He knew Ji Xian's treacherous nature, so in order to keep him in check, he had to take some unconventional measures. So it turns out you were prepared all along. Looks like I misunderstood, when Qingxian, with her narrow phoenix eyes fixed on Chen, finally spoke after he explained everything clearly. She then slightly curled her lips and said in a faint voice. Earlier, she had been particularly worried, but unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, Chen had turned the situation around. Although she was somewhat surprised and even impressed by his careful planning, her proud nature left her feeling a bit displeased. After all, given her character, It was already rare for her to speak as she had earlier. But in the end, it turned out that she had been overly sentimental. Mu Chen gazed at Xuan's exquisite face, and after a long pause, he said seriously, "These preparations were made to counter Xuan, but they're not exactly honorable, so I didn't tell you all. And thank you, Xuan." His gaze lingered on her cheek. When she saw his sincere look, her face turned slightly red, but she still retorted, "We're not that close, so don't go making such assumptions. You can explain it to Luoli, it's got nothing to do with me. If it weren't for the fact that you came to help me from so far away, and that I also despise Xuan, I wouldn't be involved in your affairs." Luoli, who was standing nearby, couldn't help but smile lightly. Mu Chen also smiled. He knew how proud Xuan was, so he didn't push the matter further. Instead, he turned to Lin Zhou and the others, clasping his fists in gratitude. "Captain Lin Zhou, thank you for your help this time." "Haha, Brother Mu, you're being too modest. We owe you a favor, of course we must repay you." Lin Zhou laughed heartily, then waved his hand. Immediately, over 100 captains from various teams took out their academy tokens. The tokens shimmered with light, transforming into beams of energy that shot out in all directions. Mu Chen raised his own academy token, and as its light surged, he absorbed all the beams into it. As the light poured in, his academy token began to glow brilliantly. The score displayed on it surged at an alarming rate. 180,000, 200,000, 230,000, 260,000. When the score finally settled at around 260,000, it gradually stopped rising. The crimson number caused everyone in the area to gasp in shock. Mu Chen's score had suddenly skyrocketed by nearly 100,000 points. As the score climbed, the team Mu Chen led surged to the top of the leaderboard, surpassing Xuan and solidifying their position in first place. First place, which had only been held for half an hour, was taken again. Mu Chen looked at the soaring score and smiled lightly. He then once more clasped his fists toward Lin Zhou and the others. With a wave of his hand, over 100 streaks of light flew from his sleeve and headed toward Lin Zhou's group. At this moment, Lin Zhou and the others understood, and they each reached out to catch a streak of light, which turned into a crystal-clear jade bottle. Inside the bottle, 5 drops of sparkling supreme spiritual liquid swirled, releasing an incredible wave of spiritual power. Looking at the supreme spiritual liquid in the jade bottle, the excitement in Lin Zhou and the others' eyes was hard to conceal. They immediately clasped their fists in deep gratitude to Mu Chen. All the teams in the area looked at Mu Chen with mixed expressions. Who would have thought that what seemed like an almost hopeless situation would be reversed by this young man with a casual smile? "He's really impressive," someone couldn't help but whisper in awe. At this point, no one would criticize Mu Chen's methods. After all, everyone knew that Xuan's score was equally illegitimate, and Mu Chen had simply repaid him in kind. Mu Chen and Xuan are both monstrous talents. I can't imagine what kind of fierce competition it will be when they meet in the final tournament. On the mountain peak, Mu Chen looked at Shan Songxing and the others, his expression serious as he said, "The final tournament will begin soon." "Understood." Shan Songxing, Li Xiantong, Su Huang, and He Yao all nodded solemnly. "I plan to reorganize the teams, adding Shan Songxing, Li Xiantong, and Su Xian to our team," Mu Chen said, looking at He Yao and Zhao Qingshan. The strength of Shan Songxing, Li Xiantong, and Su Xian was among the strongest, second only to him and Luo Li. If they could reorganize the team, it would undoubtedly become the strongest lineup. "No objections, but we have one request." He Yao, Zhao Qingshan, and Mu Fengyang exchanged glances and smiled. They had no qualms about it, understanding that this was all for the victory of their Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. "What is it?" "Help us crush Xuan," He Yao and the others said solemnly. "Leave it to me." Mu Chen stretched out his palm and smiled. Luo Li also reached out with her slender jade hand, placing it on Mu Chen's palm. Su Xian, Shan Songxing, and Li Xiantong all placed their hands on top, their eyes blazing with fervent battle intent. "Our seniors and juniors at Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy must be waiting for us. We can't let them down." Mu Chen placed his other hand on the academy token, looked at Wen Qingxian, and gently asked, "Qingxian, are you ready?" When Qingxian also held her academy token tightly. She then raised an eyebrow at Mu Xuan and smiled sweetly. "If we happen to meet in the final tournament, don't blame me for not showing mercy. Our partnership ends here." Likewise, Mu Chun laughed heartily, his black eyes gleaming with spirit. Whoosh! The academy token in Mu Chen's hand turned crimson, and flames suddenly erupted, slowly rising, eventually burning the token completely. At the same time, when Qingxian also ignited her academy token. In this area, all the teams watched this scene with complex expressions. With the top 16 now confirmed, 8 academy tokens had already burned, signaling the official end of the elimination round of the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition, which had lasted nearly half a year. Next would be the highly anticipated final tournament. Whoosh! As the academy tokens in Mu Chun and when Xuan's hands burned, the tokens in the hands of nearly all teams in the competition began to ignite spontaneously. Bright pillars of light erupted from each token, slowly enveloping each team. Across the heavens and earth, countless light pillars shot into the sky. At this moment, the world was filled with a fiery battle spirit. Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Compared to the brutal battles of the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition, the atmosphere here was much calmer. The spiritual energy in the air seemed to flow lazily, and a gentle breeze swept through, filling Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy with youthful vitality. Half a year had passed since the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition began. At the start, when Mu Chun and the others entered the competition, almost all the students had eagerly anticipated the news. But as time slowly passed and no updates came from the competition, everyone could only reluctantly calm their minds and return to their usual training. However, from time to time, they would still look up at the enormous ancient bell at the center of Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Once there was news from the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition, that bell would ring. But sadly, for half a year, the ancient bell remained silent. Despite this, Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy remained full of life. This vast academy would not stop just because of one group of participants, even if that group was Mu Chun and his team. So, after they left, the academy continued to thrive, with a constant stream of new talents emerging, causing waves in the academy. However, no matter how outstanding these newcomers and dark horses were, no one could surpass the name that had been absent from the heavenly ranking for half a year. That name seemed to be an insurmountable mountain, standing in front of all the talents of Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Yet, despite this, the talents of Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy did not give up. Instead, the pressure from that name became their motivation. The result brought about by such dedication is that within the Thunder Domain and the Spirit Gathering Array of Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, more and more people are cultivating, and the intensity of their training has become increasingly frantic. This has greatly pleased many of the tutors and elders of Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, Luo God Society. The current headquarters of Luo God Society is located in the central area of the entire Spirit Hall, where the spiritual energy is denser than on the outskirts. There are not many student forces in Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy that enjoy such privileges. Outside the headquarters of Luo God Society, there is still a vast training platform. On both sides of the platform is a large, crystal-clear lake, where the rich spiritual energy forms a faint mist that drifts over the water, creating a scene that resembles an immortal realm. At this moment, there are around 1,000 figures training on the platform, engaging in friendly sparring. The sound of wind breaking from their movements constantly fills the air. In just half a year, Luo God Society has evidently grown stronger. The new students have shed their youthful inexperience and begun to display their talents, shining with their own brilliance in Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Now, Luo God Society has undoubtedly become the strongest student force in Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. On the training platform, the figures are numerous. However, many members of Luo God Society often direct their gazes to the central area, and the main reason for this is, of course, the two slender and graceful figures in the center of the crowd. One of these figures is quite familiar. It is Su Xian's younger sister, Su Linger. In the past 6 months, This once spoiled young girl has matured significantly. She still wears a striking red dress, making her stand out. Her graceful figure, with curves that seem almost magical, and her proud posture, are undeniably captivating. Xun'er joined Luo God Society shortly after Xuan and the others participated in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition. Her joining was naturally welcomed by the society, as Xun'er is already quite famous in Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Many admire her, and her presence will certainly strengthen Luo God Society further. The other graceful figure belongs to Yushi, the girl Chen encountered before his participation in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition. Her age is not much older than Xun'er's, perhaps only a little more than a year, but Yushi has already become one of the most prominent figures in Luo God Society. After entering Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, she demonstrated an astonishing talent. In just 6 months, she rose from obscurity to claim second place on the Divine Soul rankings. The first place was still held by the record set by Chen. Although Yushi's progress lags slightly behind Chen's initial pace, it is still remarkable enough to astonish others. If Chen represented their generation of students, it is very likely that Yushi will stand at the very top in this new generation. It is possible that in 2 years, even Chen's position will be replaced by her. Of course, by that time, Chen will likely have already left Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. At this moment, Yushi is sitting on a large rock on the training platform. Her arms rest on the stone, and her green dress makes her already delicate and slender frame seem even more graceful. Her beautiful face draws the attention of many as their eyes stealthily wander her way. In Luo God Society, there has been some gossip about the so-called 3 fairies of Luo God Society, with Xun'er and Yushi being 2 of them. The last one is Xuan. However, most of the time, Xuan is practicing spiritual arrays with Ling Shi. Although her spiritual energy cultivation is not particularly outstanding, she possesses an extraordinary talent for spiritual arrays. In just 6 months of training, she made great progress in her array studies. Not long ago, in an accidental battle, she defeated a senior ranked 10th on the heavenly rankings, causing a stir throughout Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. So, in the current Luo God Society, the most famous figures are not the old-timers, but these 3 beautiful young women. Yushi sits on the cool stone, having just finished her training. She is carefully stretching her straight legs, her cute round chin resting on her knee. Her large black eyes glance toward the ancient bell on the mountain peak in the center of Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, while she pays little attention to the many admiring gazes directed at her. Beside her, Xun'er also tilts her head, her beautiful eyes fixed on the ancient bell. Hee, are you 2 thinking about Chen again? A soft laugh suddenly came from the side. Yushi and Xun'er quickly turned their heads to see Qingling standing beside them, smiling warmly. Who would think about that guy? Xun'er pouted, saying, I was just wondering how sister and the others are doing right now. No. Yushi's cheeks flushed red, and she quickly waved her hands. However, the way her large eyes flickered made her words less convincing. To be honest, she and Chen had only met once, but she was already extremely familiar with his name. Ever since joining, she had heard endless stories of Chen's legendary deeds. Even now, after arriving at Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, what she kept hearing was still about that young man's brilliance. Of course, she couldn't deny the shock she felt when she witnessed the earth-shattering clash between Chen and Shan Zongxing, where the heavenly ranking was exchanged. At that moment, the tall figure filled with unyielding fighting spirit had clearly left a deep impression on her heart. That day, Chen's aura was undeniably overwhelming. In fact, many girls at Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy must have had the same feeling, with that figure seared into their hearts. Sister Yi, do you think Chen and the others will make it to the final tournament? Yushi hesitated, then couldn't help but ask, her face turning red. Yi Qingling sat beside them, her gaze fixed on the still silent ancient bell. After a brief silence, she said, I've heard that this year's Spiritual Academy Grand Competition is the most competitive one in over a decade. Yushi and Xun'er's faces both shifted, biting their red lips. Of course, they knew how formidable Chen and the others were, But they also understood that the opponents they faced were talented geniuses from all the major spiritual academies. To stand out in such a fierce battle would not be easy. Chen and the others will definitely make it to the final tournament. Yushi clenched her small hands, her voice firm. She couldn't believe that the figure in her heart, almost as invincible as could be, would ever be defeated. We hope so too. Yi Qingling ruffled her hair gently. A few days ago, she had heard from Xun'er that Sacred Spirit Academy had an extremely abnormal genius, named Xuan, who was also an enemy of Chen. Even the elders at Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy grew serious when mentioning him. That showed just how monstrous he was. If Xuan was targeting Chen, it would be a very unsettling situation. Although Chen was indeed powerful, could he really withstand someone even the Academy elders regarded with such caution? Yi Qingling sighed lightly in her heart, feeling a bit uneasy. Sensing Yi Qingling's unease, Yushi and Su Linger exchanged glances, falling silent as well. Boom. However, just as they were quiet, an ancient and distant bell ring suddenly reverberated through the heavens and earth. The bell's echo spread across Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, and the once bustling academy fell into an immediate stillness. Countless students exchanged confused looks, but after a moment, they quickly realized what the sound of the bell meant. On the rock, Yi Qingling, Yushi, and Su Linger froze for a moment. Then, they abruptly looked up, their eyes wide with excitement as they gazed at the massive ancient bell. On their delicate faces, excitement and anticipation bloomed. Whoosh, whoosh. Above the academy, the sound of wind breaking through the air suddenly erupted, and the entire academy was in an uproar. Because everyone knew exactly what that bell's sound represented. The final tournament of the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition had arrived. Boom. The ancient bell echoed once more, resonating throughout the vast expanse, causing the entire Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy to quiet down. But this silence lasted only for a brief moment before it was shattered by earth-shattering cheers. After half a year of waiting, the final tournament of the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition had finally arrived. The entire Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy was set ablaze by the fiery atmosphere. Countless students stared eagerly at the direction of the ancient bell, their eyes filled with both expectation and nervousness. They were all eager to know how their two teams, representing Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy in the grand competition, were faring now. The sound of wind breaking through the air echoed across the sky and earth. In the sky, a sea of people quickly gathered, and from afar at the entrance of the Thunder Domain, the students who originally planned to enter for training simultaneously turned around, eagerly rushing toward the direction of the ancient bell. Messages spread swiftly, even reaching the Thunder Domain and the Spirit Gathering Array, waking up those who were in seclusion. When they heard that the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition's final tournament was approaching, their faces lit up with excitement, and they abandoned their cultivation to rush toward the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. The atmosphere within the entire academy became extremely heated at this moment. Amid the bustling atmosphere in the academy, at a distant tranquil mountain peak, the normally closed academy gates were pushed open. An elegant figure stepped out quickly. This figure wore a white dress, her long black hair cascading like a waterfall, flowing down from her slender waist. She held an ancient scroll in her jade-like hand, its surface marked with intricate array patterns. Her appearance was exceptionally beautiful, though usually her face carried an air of indifference, as if nothing in the world could disrupt her composure. However, at this moment, the usually indifferent expression on her face was rare, and her eyes gleamed with a trace of joy. Standing outside the academy, she raised her beautiful eyes to gaze in the direction of the ancient bell, her rosy lips curling into a captivating smile, as beautiful as could be. Sister Lingxi, do you think Brother Chen will make it into the final tournament? Behind her, the girl with a black ponytail, Xun'er, blinked her big eyes, her face filled with excitement. After waiting for half a year, they finally had news about Chen and the others. Of course he will, Lingxi replied without hesitation. After all, Chen was Aunt Jing's child. It couldn't be that hard for him to enter the final tournament. Although Lingxi understood how fierce the competition in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition could be, She held great respect and admiration for Aunt Jing. This respect naturally extended to Mu Chen, so she didn't think Mu Chen would be weaker than any of his peers. Xun'er covered her mouth and secretly laughed. It seems like the person most confident in Brother Mu Chen is you, Sister Lingxi. Just a while ago, even the headmaster and others expressed their concerns, because Brother Mu Chen's rival is really too strong. And since Brother Mu Chen left, Sister Lingxi, you haven't smiled once, but hearing news about him now, you're this happy. Lingxi's face flushed slightly, then she narrowed her eyes and gave Xun'er a dangerous look. It seems you didn't spend enough time in the spirit array room last time. Next time, you'll have to stay longer. No, please don't, Sister Lingxi. Xun'er's face turned pale as she pitifully pleaded. Lingxi gently flicked her slender finger on Xun'er's smooth forehead, releasing her, then looked back at the ancient bell with a more serious expression. After calming down, she understood the difficulties Mu Chen would face this time. After all, that person named Ji Xian was indeed a tough opponent. Judging by his current strength, he might even be comparable to some of the elders at the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Lingxi didn't doubt that Mu Chen would lead his team to the final tournament, but if they met Ji Xian there, it would undoubtedly be a fierce battle. Ji Xian's talent was such that even among some long-established clans, he could be considered a top-tier genius. Whoosh! As the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy erupted into excitement, several flashes of light shot out from the Grand Hall of the Spiritual Academy and hovered in the air. Leading them was the Academy head of Taizong. At this moment, he too looked nervously at the ancient bell. Although the two teams sent by the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy were strong, they were fully aware that this year's Spiritual Academy Grand Competition was the most competitive and the participants the strongest in over a decade. So achieving a good result in this year's competition would not be easy. However, no matter how difficult it was, they had to compete. The results of this competition would determine whether the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy could maintain its title among the 5 great academies. If they lost, it would be a tremendous blow to all the students of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. They couldn't even imagine how low their morale would sink. The Grand Song Academy head exchanged a glance with Hall Master Mou and the other elders behind him, each catching a trace of solemnity in the other's eyes. Headmaster, it's time to open the battle realm, Hall Master Mou said softly. At this point, worrying would do no good. The battle realm had to be opened first, and only then would they know if Mu Chen and the others had succeeded. Grand Song Academy head nodded slowly, then began to form hand seals. A beam of spiritual light shot from his fingertips like a falling star, streaking across the sky before crashing heavily into the ancient bell. Dong! The deep, resonating sound of the bell echoed once more. Buzz! This time, with the bell's chime, golden light suddenly surged out of the bell like a tidal wave, enveloping the entire sky. The golden light gathered slowly in the air, and the space twisted, eventually forming a golden passage. This passage leads to the battle realm, a small space for the final battle of the Spiritual Academy competition. Except for the freshmen, all other students may enter. No disruptions to order are allowed, or there will be punishments according to the Academy rules. Grand Song Academy head's voice echoed across the entire Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, resonating in everyone's ears. Understood. At this command, countless students immediately responded with excitement, while the freshmen could only wail in despair. Although they knew there would be spiritual projections of the competition within the academy, they were far from the same as watching the event live. However, Grand Song Academy head paid no attention to their wailing. His figure moved, becoming a streak of light as he entered the golden passage, with Hall Master Mou closely following behind. Swish! The sound of wind tearing through the air filled the vast Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. A sea of figures surged upward like a swarm of locusts, finally pouring into the golden passage. On a nearby mountain peak, Lingxi gazed at the golden passage, hesitant. Sister Lingxi, let's go too. I really want to know how Brother Mu Chen is doing, Xun'er said, blinking her big eyes as she tugged at Lingxi's sleeve. Upon hearing this, Lingxi raised an eyebrow, then nonchalantly replied, All right, since you want to see, I'll take you to have a look. As she spoke, she noticed Xun'er giggling behind her hand. Ling Shi's face flushed slightly, and she shot a glare at the mischievous girl. This little thing dared to tease her. Ling Shi extended her jade hand, took Xun'er's hand, and with a wave, they shot out like a streak of light. We'll go too. At the Luo God Society headquarters, Yi Qingling exclaimed excitedly. But I'm a freshman, Yushi pouted, nearly in tears. Just sneak in. Don't worry. Although the discipline hall is strict, they'll still give some face to our Luo God Society. After all, Mu Chen once took down all 3 senior students from the discipline hall. They wouldn't dare do anything to us, Su Linger said with a playful smile. All right. Yushi hesitated, but in the end, emotions won out over reason. She gritted her teeth and nodded. Let's go. Yi Qingling waved her hand and led the way, with Yu Shi and Su Linger quickly following. The 3 of them merged into the massive flow of light and dashed into the Golden Passage. As they entered the Golden Passage, Yi Qingling, Yu Shi, and Su Linger could clearly feel the violent spatial fluctuations. The golden light filled their eyes, and dizziness struck. Fortunately, the dizziness only lasted for a moment, and the golden light before their eyes gradually faded. Soon, the scenery around them began to change, and their mouths opened slightly in amazement. Before them stretched a vast world filled with golden light, and the air was filled with a deafening clamor. Looking around, the sea of people seemed endless. In the distant sky, there were also golden vortexes, from which an endless stream of people emerged. Judging by their attire, they were clearly students from other spiritual academies. Almost every large spiritual academy could open the battle realm, allowing their students to enter and watch the final competition. The sea of people spread out in every direction, but there was a clear division. Each spiritual academy's students gathered in their respective areas, hovering in mid-air. The grand spectacle left Yi Qingling and the others dumbfounded. After a long while, they finally regained their composure and turned their attention forward. In the vast expanse before them, a massive golden stone platform floated in the air. Surrounding the platform was a golden energy shield, completely separating the inside from the outside world. Whoosh! Whoosh! As the sky and earth were overtaken by an overwhelming sea of people, countless golden beams of light suddenly descended from the heavens, only to dissipate and reveal teams dressed in a variety of attire. These teams were all participants in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition. Countless gazes were fixed upon these teams, their eyes filled with admiration. Whether or not these teams were from their own academy, they were all fighting for the honor of their respective spiritual academies, which deserved respect. Boom! The sound of an ancient bell ringing reverberated through the air once more. This time, nearly everyone's eyes, filled with burning intensity, were directed toward the central position of the enormous golden battle stage, where golden light began to blossom. The previously noisy atmosphere suddenly fell silent, and everyone's eyes widened in anticipation.